It's now been 21 years since my first book was published. I was a very precocious 4-year-old, obviously, and it's been 19 years since I read anything from that book to an audience, and so I thought it'd be fun to do that today. I've been writing all my life, longer than I can possibly remember. I only set about it with any serious intent and consistency when I turned 18, and my first book is basically a collection of stories that I wrote during that first year, most of which have been published in various magazines and anthologies here in the UK and in the USA. One of these stories, which I'm going to read today, called Inner Demons, is a rather more humorous piece than I normally write, and I was surprised that so innocent a tale could draw the disapproval of the editor of a supposed adult horror magazine, but it seemed to do just that when he returned it with various requests for cleaning up. One of the phrases that he objected to in the story was tiny penis, and you may well draw the same conclusion about that editor as everyone else to whom I've told this anecdote. He couldn't sleep again. Not tonight, not with a warty demon sat on the end of his bed, picking its nose with a sharpened claw and flicking its slimy bogies up at him. Eventually Rogers tired of it as he swung his feet out of bed, dislodging the small creature onto the floor with an undignified bump. The digital bedside clock told him it was almost 5 in the morning. "What the hell are you doing to me?" he asked, as the creature shuffled about in the shadows. He could see its cruel eyes glimmering coldly, hear its rasping breath filing away at the silence of the night. "What I'm supposed to do? Just hanging around." Rogers yawned, stretched. He'd resigned himself to the fact that this was going to be another sleepless night. Tonight, the creature was worse than ever. For the past few days, it hadn't been solid anyway, just ethereal, like a ghost. He'd almost managed to pretend that it wasn't really there, that he was imagining the creature. Certainly nobody else seemed to be able to see it. "What are you?" Rogers asked, sitting on the edge of the bed and peering into the clump of darkness beside the wardrobe where the demon had fell. It emerged slowly, no more than 2 feet tall, covered in tough, warty leather skin with a large bulbous head, jutting jaw full of razor-sharp fangs, curved horns and glowing hellfire eyes. As it ambled over, he noticed that the creature was a he, for its tiny penis swung like a pendulum between its squat legs. "I'm Depression," the creature replied with a bow. "At your service." "But I don't understand." "You called on me. I'm your own personal demon made flesh, come to take you away." "Depression? You mean my depression?" "Of course." The creature lifted a leg, farted. The foulest stench imaginable filled the room and everything went misty. Rogers moaned in pain as he turned away, screwed up his face. With a chuckle, the demon continued. "Your depression has been worsening over these past few days so much that it's formed shape. Me." Again, the bow. "Everyone has their own personal demon which kills them, forms flesh in their last moments of life when their troubles become so strong." As it spoke, Rogers noticed shapes scuttling in the shadows of the bedroom. He saw 3-foot centipedes coiling around each other, pulsing repulsively. Huge spiders with human heads for bodies. Things which would have been angels had they not been torn apart bloodily and stitched back together with their own intestines and barbed wire. Just a few of my colleagues. Bereavement, cancer, senility, lust. It spoke the last name with a particular fondness. As Rogers watched, one of the demons, which seemed at first to be 2 human hands, detached itself from the writhing throng and scuttled over to plant a slimy kiss on Depression's warty cheek. As it neared, he could see that growing from the wrists of each hand were human genitals, the penis thrusting mechanically into the vulva, making them one creature. Are you saying that I'm about to die? Rogers asked as the other demons vanished without trace. Depression looked up at him with a lascivious grin, showing his fangs and long forked tongue. Sometime soon, If replied. Now I'm here, your depression can't really get any stronger, can it? I'm living now, just like you. We're both part of the same existence, and before too long, you'll be coming back with me. Rogers thought better of asking to where. The creature was moving towards him in its odd bow-legged swagger. For the first time, Rogers noticed that it had a tail, short and pointed, swishing around between its hairy buttocks. It stopped just in front of him, looked him over with a critical, bloodshot eye. What a sorry sight he made, a wasted, haggard man lined beyond his 47 years, facing up to his demon, clad in only his best stripy pyjamas and his bunny slippers. Depression waddled strategically into position over one of his slippers, squatted down, screwed up its ugly face in pained concentration, and shat onto his slipper. "Oh, for Christ's sake!" Rogers moaned, turning away in disgust as the flies began to buzz. "What was that for?" "You're not coming with me in slippers like that," the demon snarled, using the corner of a bedsheet to wipe itself off on. Rogers panicked. "But we're not going now, are we? I mean, I don't want to die yet." "Why? You've never had anything to live for." But... Stop whining. You're not going to die yet. I'm just taking you on a little trip, show you some things, that's all. You can't enter into die without the knowledge of the unliving and the awful realisation of the afterworld. The what? Shut up, put your dressing gown on. It's cold out there. Rogers stumbled mutely to where his quilted dressing gown hung limp on the back of the door. He pulled it on like a cloak of warm reality, expecting depression to be gone when he turned round again. But the demon was crouched on a windowsill like a gargoyle, gazing out at the star-studded night with tears in its eyes. The man walked towards it, not knowing what to say. Slowly the demon turned its large, ugly head to stare at him. It extended one of its knobbly claws, grasped his hand. "Come on," it said. "Let me show you the knowledge." They walked long and desolate streets among houses made of bone, behind whose windows burned endless fires. A huge moon hung low in the sky, blood-red, and so enormous that only a quarter of it was visible to them, its craters forming faces that screamed silently into the cold, limitless void of space. Depression was strangely quiet, solemn almost. Rogers had expected it to be talking, almost like a tour guide of whatever place the world had turned into. But the creature just held onto his hand like an obedient toddler, waddling along with its head bowed and its eyes brimming with silver tears. They passed a house where dead bodies were being flung from one of the upper floor windows to land on a pile that reached nearly as high. Rogers glanced towards them and was inexplicably saddened to see all the corpses had featureless expanses of flesh where their faces should have been. At his side, Depression sighed mournfully. Something stalked along the street, like a robed figure, but with legs taller than trees. As it strode past, it reached into a bulging sack which it carried and scattered human hearts down onto the pavement like seed. They melted into the concrete and things began to grow from them, but Depression tugged at his hand to hurry him along. "Don't look back," it growled. He could hear something like clockwork grinding deep within the planet, or wherever this was, and an amplified ticking like that of a huge clock. He looked down at his companion, but Depression had averted its eyes and was staring across the road to where stillborn babies were piled like logs for the fire outside another of the bone houses. He didn't know how much longer they walked like that before they came to the edge of a steep mountain top, and the rest of the world seemed spread out below them like a blanket of lights and minuscule cities. Something rose from the ground, huge and dark, a column so large that it would have surely taken a whole lifetime just to walk around its base. So large that its top was not in sight. Storm clouds gathered around the cylinder, lightning flickered against its surface, not marking the dark brickwork. Rogers noticed dozens of huge airships floating around the cylinder silently like guards. "The Tower of the Eternal Dead," Depression said, its voice quivering with something that might have been fear. It was somebody's bright idea to build a tower which reached to heaven so the dead could return and walk, and not just for one either. How do you mean? Think of what you believe to be the world as a wheel. This planet we stand on is its hub. What you think of as heaven is the tire. And these towers, they're like the spokes. Awful realization was beginning to dawn. Depression turned to face him. Tears were running down the creature's warty face. "Exactly," it said, "except that heaven and earth were never meant to be connected." What happened then? Everything you see around you, this place was never meant to be. All man's demons found form in this unnatural existence, and man lost control over them. They started coming after him. You mean like you? The creature wailed out in agony. "I don't want to be doing this, can't you see? None of these things you see here are doing their work willingly. Something else is making us do what we do, and yet whatever it is has abandoned us, left us to it, and we can't stop. We're stuck here. None of this was ever meant to be." Rogers watched as myriad strange creatures wandered the streets of the weird cities below, crawling everywhere like insects, blind and mechanical in whatever hellish duties they were cursed to perform for the rest of eternity. He felt some great realization tug at the back of his mind, but then the demon gripped his hand tighter and said, "I think it's about time we went back now." As the darkness of the bedroom began to form around them again, Rogers realized why Depression had been crying. The creature was worsening as his own soul became darkened with everything he had just witnessed. Strangely, he himself felt no sadness, and he knew this was because all of his misery was now made into a separate entity which had just guided him, in his last few hours of life, on a tour of what awaited him in the afterlife. "Fancy a coffee?" he asked the demon. "I never drink the stuff," Depression replied with a sneer. "As a last request then, just one cup for me." Depression looked impatient, shuffled from foot to foot, his claws tearing at the carpet. "Oh, okay then, but be quick. You haven't got long left, you know." They made their way down to the kitchen and sat there in the darkness, waiting for the kettle to boil. Depression sat on the edge of a sink, its feet dangling high above the floor like a small child. Rogers smirked secretly, got up to find a clean mug, as the demon began to boredly whistle "Hi-ho." He stood by the drawers, opened one of them, and reached inside. Completely free of misery, he felt no guilt whatsoever over what he was about to do. His hand closed around the butcher's knife, and he whirled round, slashing out at Depression and cutting its throat. The little demon toppled backwards into the sink with a startled yelp, which turned into a bloody gurgle as the blade freed itself again, glinting silver in the darkness like the creature's tears. Rogers cackled, stuffed Depression limb by limb into the waste disposal unit, and switched on the blades. The blades had some trouble chewing up the creature's warty, tough skin, but by the time the kettle began to whistle, there were only a few scattered lumps of gore across the room to show that Depression had ever existed. What a great idea, Rogers thought. He made himself a lovely strong mug of coffee. My Depression became a separate living entity, So to get rid of it, all I had to do was murder the poor little bastard. He began to cackle as he sat down at the dining table to sip his drink, congratulating himself. Just then, the refrigerator door creaked open like the lid of a coffin, spilling cold blue light and eerie, chilling mist into the room. Rogers felt his teeth begin to chatter as the door swung to a stop, and something moved deep within the dripping stalactites of ice, dislodging boxes of crispy pancakes and fish fingers onto the linoleum. Something which looked like a greyhound only starved surely beyond the point of death, raised its human face full of fangs to peer at him quizzically. Its dark, empty eye sockets were overgrown with weeds and dripping soil from freshly dug graves. Rogers saw that this too had tears in its eyes, only they were frozen into icy daggers. "What the hell are you?" he asked breathlessly. The creature grinned wolfishly around its fangs, which were too big for its small head. "Allow me to introduce myself," it said in a voice which grated his nerves. "I'm Bereavement. You've lived with depression most of your life. I think you're going to miss the little fellow,